Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to TechGig webinar series, our endeavor to impart techies. We believe that sharing of knowledge is the key to enhance our skills and grow us as professionals. With this principle in mind, we have initiated a series of webinars conducted by industry experts to give you all a crisp insight of various domains. The topic of today's session is Bringing Smarter Workforce to Life series, Part 2, Kenexa Onboarding, the Part 2 Productivity. Our guest speaker today is Ms. Debashish Roy, Senior Manager, Smarter Workforce, Kenexa Onboarding and Assessments, IBM. Debashish has been working in the human capital management domain for the past 14 years and has vast experience developing SaaS solutions across the whole gamut of employee lifecycle, including recruitment, onboarding, performance management, compensation management, and assessments. Dave is passionate about people and brings intense knowledge in designing and deploying SaaS-based solutions. He has been instrumental in setting up the Kenexa operations in India, which is today one of the Kenexa's largest development centers. So without further delay, I introduce you all to our guest speakers. Over to you, Debashish.
Thank you, Mohini. Let me just share my application. Just let me know once you see the slide, Mohini, then I will start my presentation.
Your slides are visible. You can start now.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Today I will be talking in continuation to what my colleague Kiran Sangeet had a session a couple of weeks earlier on this very same topic, but focusing on a different module called recruitment. Today we will be talking more on the onboarding piece and discuss how that is very crucial in ensuring that you improve the productivity and engagement of your employees. So just to start with, over the last decade or so, we have seen dramatic shifts in talent demographics and the composition of workforce, as well as technological advances, all of which are changing the context of our work. Considering these key trends which are reshaping the talent strategies within our businesses, how do we define a smarter workforce? And that's what I'm going to talk about in the next few slides. Other than that, we will also look at what are the organization challenges that are being faced today. I mean, how can we overcome those challenges? And how is onboarding connected in overcoming those challenges? And at the end, we will talk about the smarter workforce and onboarding and how Kenexa, an IBM company, is bringing this to our customers. So what is smarter workforce? If you just go back in the past, it was often about the top-down management, right? Whatever the leaders say or the managers say, people just follow, and that's how the work is to get done. However, in recent times and going in the future, the definition of work will change. It's going to be more about leveraging our collective intelligence. The significant change that this will bring puts more and more pressure on leaders and managers like never before. And it's not just a top-down management approach. This whole change in leveraging our collective intelligence from bottom up, it's what's going to define how the work is getting done. A couple of things that's actually impacting the way it's going to be done. Number one is the social piece, right? We have seen the rise of social in every sphere of our life, and workplace is no different. We are connecting with each other more quickly than ever before, and we are doing it in newer ways. In fact, data shows that there has been a 12% productivity gain with the use of social within enterprises and as well as in our personal lives. The next one that's going to impact how work gets done is the analysis of big data, right? I mean, today HR has got humongous set of data that it's sitting on, which are there in a lot of different siloed applications. Some of them talk to each other in some form. Most of them don't talk to each other. They get to put all the data in some form in an Excel sheet or some other way and then try and analyze the data. That's not a very good and effective way of doing analytics. But going forward with all the data coming on, some from the structured ones, mostly from unstructured environment, analytics is going to play a big role in how decisions are going to be made. In fact, 63% people see it as a competitive advantage based on their study. Mobile, as we know, is something that we cannot do without in today's world, and especially in the growth markets like India, China, and others, the BRIC nations, as we call them. Mobile is something that has grown significantly and is impacting everything that we do today. 75% people have a mobile device today, and people want things on the go at this moment and do not want to wait for things, and how HR as a provider can take advantage of this technology and help deliver the outcomes that they have to. Last but not the least is the rise of the independent worker. Who do we call an independent worker? It's not someone who is a white collar or a blue collar, someone who probably holds multiple jobs at one time and provides different roles and plays different roles based on the work they have a contract with, right? In fact, more and more we are going to see the increase of this kind of worker in today's world and also going into the future. And how do we engage with this kind of workforce is what's going to be the challenge in the future. All these intertwined dynamics require a comprehensive point of view. So we've seen social business, we have seen independent worker coming out big time, big data and analytics, mobile technology. How do we bring all those things together and connect them together to provide what the business leaders are looking for, which is affecting the business outcome in terms of growth, in terms of revenue, in terms of profitability, in terms of engagement, in terms of innovation. And these are all the imperatives that we will be looking at. Therefore, if you have to conclude what a smarter workforce is, it's if we harness the power of big data and analytics with human insight, human behavior, and workforce solutions, along with social and mobile technologies, we bring people and employers together to do more meaningful and valuable work. And this is what we call the smarter workforce. Now, to look at the organization challenges that we have in today's world. A recent study that was done by IBM, which included the CHROs, which is the Chief Human Resource Officers, as well as the Chief Executive Officers, shows that human capital is going to be the primary focus of in fact, 71% of the people, CEOs, have made that one of their top priority. For human resource people, the challenge has been how to cultivate creative leaders, right? The world is changing and changing rapidly. How do we ensure that leaders are on top of it, understand the impact of all these changes, and ensure that the organization as a whole is ready to be able to deliver under those circumstances. In terms of talent management, these are the new trends that we are seeing. Jobs are now more specialized. It's no more generic. People have to have specialized knowledge so that they can have more meaningful impact in the work they do and deliver. And it's also more contingent, in some cases easier to measure. New generations entering the workforce expect HR technologies to mirror consumer technologies, like in terms of mobile, social, and informal learning. Right? They do not want to be bound by classroom training or taking certain trainings during certain durations only. They just want to have things available to them so that they can do or learn at their own pace or deliver based on the way that they need to focus on right now. Technology has removed borders between people, and therefore there is a virtual workplace that's getting built, right? So in this whole environment of offshore one-side delivery, how do we connect employees and customers and partners? so that work gets delivered effectively. Career management is changing. The notion of career management, job specialization has created a need for more specialized and flexible career models. And as I already mentioned, the volume of human resource data is exploding. How do we have the ability to analyze them to be able to make effective decisions? All those things are pretty much for the below 4 items, right? How do we fuel growth, expand the business? How do we create innovation? I mean, innovation is a word that is being thrown out these days by a large lump sector group of people, but effectively, how do you create innovations amongst a group of people so that you can be always on the top of the market or be on the leadership market role, right? How do you adapt to change, all the changes that's happening around you? Then how do you reinforce culture, which is nothing but the teamwork and collaboration, because you go through this whole hiring process, you focus on finding the best talent, but then you just leave him on to do their own thing or get to swim on their own in your organization, that can badly reflect back on you and in fact affect you in the long term. So we have to ensure that how do we get them onboarded in the organization and reinforce the culture of the organization. Some more data to go with. The average time to full employee productivity in terms of clerical jobs, it's 8 weeks. In terms of professional, it's 20 weeks. As we grow up higher the hierarchy, as for executives, it's 26 weeks. As you can see that replacing a hire, it's not an easy job. It takes almost 6.5 months, an average time, to reach the break-even point for managers. That's what we find from the Harvard study. 72% of the organizations are saying that they have an insufficient pipeline of talent for critical jobs. About 1/3 of the new managers will fail at their new jobs within 18 months. And that's a big thing in terms of delivery. Studies have shown that on average it's cost about 1.5 times an employee's annual salary to replace that employee when they leave. In fact, 90% of the employees make their decision to stay with a company within the first 6 months, which basically goes to say that first impression does have an impact on an employee. The first 18 months a new employee is with a company is when they're most vulnerable to leave. 58% of the new employees who went through a structured program were more likely to be within the organization after 3 years. 45% of the workers want to change jobs every 3 to 5 years. As we can see with all the data, it's becoming more and more imperative that it's just not about hiring good people, but how do you make these good hires great employees is what the whole story is about. And that brings me to the next topic, which is what is onboarding and how does it all of this connect to onboarding. So onboarding is the step between your candidate's offer acceptance to actually when they start performing full speed, right? It's the stuff in the middle. Priorly, onboarding was considered a very boring process designed to get the new hire to fill some paper, and then HR would just get them out of their hair quickly. It has little to do with their actual job, and it didn't really help with engaging or collaborating on performance. But today we are seeing a fundamental shift in the definition of onboarding. Onboarding is actually becoming the fundamental part to performance excellence. Companies are investing heavily in talent acquisition, as I mentioned. But by the same token, they are not able to transform the acquired talent to achieve performance excellence. Having the right talent at the right time involves much more than hiring. The typical approach to onboard today is focused on compliance, paperwork, and provisioning. It has very little to do with enabling employees to perform to their full potential. You know, it's like finding the best seeds and then expecting the seeds to magically sprout and grow without the proper care and nurturing. As a result, companies are facing expensive turnover, poor productivity, and lack of employee engagement. And therefore, when done right, onboarding accelerates not just performance accelerate, but it also ensures employee engagement. Who onboards? It's not just about the new hires, right? People change roles within the organization, people get promoted, companies get bought. So all of these have to go through onboarding. Then there are expats who are traveling and taking up roles in different countries. There are remote employees who has different set of needs to be able to effectively work and deliver. There are contractors who needs to be onboarded. And again, then there are vendors whom you need to onboard. So again, it's not just about the new hires, it's about a whole set of other different people whose role, delivery, expectations are constantly changing, and you need to constantly engage them and ensure that they all remain productive. Therefore, as we saw, onboarding impacts time to performance, your retention, as well as your engagement. On the business side, if you have to look at it, companies that have best-in-class onboarding process in-house have seen significant growth in terms of organizational goals achieved within the first year, as well as the level of engagement for their new hires. In terms of automation, if your onboarding is automated, you have a higher chance of retaining your new hires, as well as higher level of engagement for your new hires. Not just that, the ability to achieve the performance goals in the first year also increases for new hires with automation. Some other impacts of standardized onboarding is 54% greater new hire productivity, 50% greater new hire retention, 2 times the level of new hire engagement. And it's not just about full-time employees. Onboarding has an impact on your contingent and contract labor as well. And as we see, the amount of number of contingent worker is going to increase day by day in the future. So in terms of measurement, how we see the best-in-class organization measure up compared to the laggard organization, as you can see from the table here, there is significant improvement when you go for structured onboarding, both in terms of first-year employment retention, achievement of performance milestones, year-over-year improvement in hiring manager satisfaction, involvement of wide group of stakeholders, standardized and automated onboarding process to gain efficiency. Coming to Kenexa's delivery of onboarding. Now, we talked about the whole smarter workforce. There are 3 pieces to smarter workforce. One is obviously the attracting the talent. Second is enabling your talent. Third is allowing them to perform. Our focus today will be how you enable your talent. And onboarding is the path to enable your talent. Right? Enable employees to hit the ground running and to continually run and develop their skills. Most of the companies today have siloed applications. You make the employee go to different systems to go get onboarded, get appraised, get compensated for their planned career path, for learning, to take some classes, for getting hired. But this is not working anymore because the data is all siloed, they do not talk to each other, and therefore you are unable to make a informed decision which is going to affect your company. Therefore, the problem is that you have individuals whom you have hired, but you are unable to make them up and running in less time. And therefore, you have a significant risk of losing good talent because of poor onboarding. The way we approach in Kenexa is provide them a singular view of the whole employee life cycle. Therefore, onboarding should do 3 things and it should do those three things very well. You need to engage people. You should design around employees' development needs, integrate performance learning naturally onto onboarding, and use ongoing complete feedback for performance. Second is the user experience. It's very important. More and more as you see the applications getting developed, user experience is taking more and more critical role in terms of the acceptance of the application. And therefore, you have to put users at the heart of your design when you are designing the application. Provide opportunity to learn daily. So it's not just about 1 or 2 classrooms. You have to ensure that they get to learn from an unstructured platform. Learning on the job is simple and natural, right? Provide one persona-driven experience. So if I am logging into the system as an employee, I should have a seamless experience moving from onboarding to performance to learning to compensation. Similarly, for hiring manager, I should again have a seamless experience moving across different modules within the employee lifecycle. And then obviously when you have all these things together, built-in, integrated, you have the ability to drive analytics out of this data and make meaningful decisions. Let's look at a typical pattern of an employee onboarding. So you have hired, let's call her Sarah. And so Sarah got hired and now she is going to become an employee. During hiring process, what we typically do is we sell a very great story about the company, how good the company is, what kind of work we are doing, and therefore we explain to that person why she should be coming and working with us. But then there is a vacuum created, right? Till the person actually shows up physically at your door on her first day. That's where we fall through it. That's where we leave the candidate totally blank. As I go ahead, I will show how Kenexa's onboarding solutions help bridge that gap where you can continue to engage your employee and make sure he or she has a experience like never before and come ready for her first day at job. For Sarah to be onboarded properly, she needs to ensure that she coordinates with HR, as well as she has to make sure she is in touch with her manager. More than that, Sarah also has to have the ability to quickly engage with her team so that she can be effective from day one. Not just that, Sarah should also have an ability to have access to a set of documentation or information so that she can quickly look up for information and that can help her learn on the go. Let's look at typical web experience that Kenexa can provide, and this is something that we are working on and for the future. Sarah can quickly talk to her manager, can quickly get interacting with her team. On the dashboard, she can easily see the tasks that she needs to complete, as well as she is provided with a information of all the resources that she needs to quickly get connected with her work. So as we can see, we can connect Sarah to instant messaging, internal social network, the whole guidance and compliance, as well as the learning ability. So if you remember at the beginning of the presentation, we talked about 3 things, right? We talked about social, we talked about mobility, we talked about data, and we talked about the workforce itself, which is changing from more as a contract rather than full-time, right? And as we see, that's how we are building our onboarding system, where they can quickly talk to their managers through instant messaging, socialize with their team through internal social networks, as well as get into the onboarding process by completing all the tasks online. And not just that, also providing them with a resource like Wiki or Connection and help them learn on their job. She can do a quick search, and then she can actually find out her interests, find people who are of the same interest. She can follow them. She can ensure people start following her as she starts contributing to the topics, right? And she can then quickly become an expert in her own domain and in her area of specialization. And that is all doable from the onboarding tool. Also, as things become more and more social, she can update data. It's all available to her group, and not just to her group, anyone who is actually connecting to that group can see the information. They can comment on it. They can have a dialogue and a discussion around the topic. And this is all doable through the social business platform. So not just that, within the social platform, we can actually filter the data for the new hire based on her interest, right? Also, we can filter the people and the communities that she needs to become member of based on her interest and her job role and job description. So as you see, we can quickly leverage social networking to get the employees up to speed much faster than what is done typically today. Onboarding, while we can provide them with social, mobile, and connections, onboarding also requires us to complete a lot of paperwork, right? As we automate the paperwork, more and more work can be done before you actually show up on your first day, and ensure that your first day is all about the job, about setting the expectations, about having discussions with your manager, and not wasting time filling up paper with HR or accounts or finance and stuff like that. You can ask questions, right? Typically, a new hire will have a lot of questions. How do I do this? What do I go? Where do I go for this? And all those can be assimilated within a forum in your social networking site. And people can just reply to her questions whenever they are being asked. You can exchange ideas with experts, which can then foster innovation and collaboration. And all of this is not just about compliance and paperwork, but it is the whole experience that you are bringing in for the new hire that will increase your satisfaction and make sure he or she is becoming more and more engaged with the company, with the team, and with the work that they have to do. Okay? And this is an example of a mobile experience where you can not just do it through your desktop or laptop, you also have the ability to deliver onboarding through the mobile applications. Now let's look at another persona, which is the manager, onboarding manager, right? So we just saw what Sarah as a candidate who has become an employee will go through, but what about the manager who actually has to onboard Sarah? I mean, the personas who has to be in the network remain the same. Manager has to work with Sarah, manager has to work with HR, manager also has to ensure the team provides the support necessary for Sarah to be productive. Manager again has to ensure that Sarah gets access to all the necessary forums, communities, and wikis so that she has the data at her hand. From a hiring manager's perspective, you can easily build a dashboard that will give the current snapshot of all the hires that are happening in his team, right? There is a snapshot of who is at what stage, where is it pending, who is the owner of the current staff, as well as how many of this is internal versus external, right? The managers can also get access to the detailed personal information, organizational information, so that they know what to do and how to proceed and go ahead with it. Managers can also look at the start dates, validate employment eligibility, complete customer-specific onboarding activities, communicate and interact with candidates through this application. They can as well set up training courses so that as soon as Sarah comes in, so if Sarah has to go through a set of training, she can easily do that through the onboarding platform. She doesn't necessarily have to go through another application and complete that. Also, this becomes the tool for reviewing the onboarding plan with the employee, as well as not just that, but set up tracking of the progress of the employee in terms of tasks, onboarding status, assigning responsibilities, as well as put timelines checks. You can put 30, 60, 90 day timeline check and ensure that Sarah is actually getting ahead with this task that she needs to go through. At the end, what I would say is that onboarding is not about paperwork. Onboarding is actually a process by which you can make an employee a loyal employee, a productive employee, and a very highly engaged employee. And so let's look at some of the best practices that would take us there. The one thing that's very important is personalization. Right? As we all know, one size does not fit all, and therefore we should have the ability to personalize the onboarding based on that individual's needs. We have to make it more engaging, meaningful, and memorable, and that's what we try and achieve through social and mobile. The 4 C's that are very important in this is communicate, connect, collaborate, and co-develop. What it means is that when you are developing your onboarding process, you need to involve various stakeholders that will ultimately define the success of your onboarding process. So it's not just about the employee, it's not just about the manager or the HR person. The leadership needs to be engaged in it to make it a successful process. Again, it needs to be easily varied to meet the needs of the business, local, and job, right? So as you see, when you are onboarding for someone in India compared to when you will onboard the same person for the similar role in US, the process may not be similar. The forms that needs to be filled will not be similar. So you need to ensure that your application is able to take care of that, and that is what we call multi-tenancy. And as I mentioned before, it's not just for new hires, it's also including people who change roles, who gets promoted, who gets acquired, people going into different countries, and also contractors and vendors. You need to develop a written onboarding plan, make onboarding participatory, be sure your program is consistently implemented, ensure that the program is monitored over time, use milestones such as 30, 60, 90 days on the job, engage stakeholders in planning, and include key stakeholders meeting as part of the program. Most importantly, be crystal clear with the new employees in terms of objectives, timelines, roles, and responsibilities. With this, I will end my presentation and open it up for questions.
Well, thank you so much for the insightful presentation, Devashish. It was a great one. I'm sure our attendees liked it. I request all the attendees to please start sending their questions. Devashish, meanwhile, we have a question for you. Are you able to see it?
One second. Yes. So there is a question from Darshan Penikar. And the question is, can you please explain something about succession planning in Kenexa? Okay, great. So yes, as part of our integrated talent suite, we do offer succession planning, and it's part of our performance management tool. So once you have done onboarding, and when you start measuring performance, and once you have measured performance, you need to then start planning for succession planning, right? Who are the ones who are ready to take up new roles? Or if someone within your organization moves out or gets promoted, who are the people that can take this person's position? So, I mean, for the question, is it more about what offerings we have and how we approach it, or what exactly is succession planning? Okay, I think I have the next question. Do you have some sample onboarding plan and model for new plus existing? Hey, Mohini. Okay, the next question is from Kenexa and Subramaniam, and the question is, do you have some sample onboarding plan and model for new and existing? Yes, so as I said, there are best practices that needs to be followed, but the way we typically approach onboarding with any company is that what makes that company a success, right? And so it's all about their culture, it's all about their values, their mission, and how we can take that and put that in our onboarding tool. And that's typically how we will go about doing it. In terms of steps, yes, typically onboarding tools we would automate it and integrate with the hiring tool. So whenever you are using any tool for your talent acquisition, we would typically integrate our onboarding tool with that tool so that majority of your data you don't have to re-enter in the system, right? And that also helps you take care of redundancies and inconsistencies within data. So once that data flows into your system, you can also allow the new candidate to validate the data and submit the data. Now, onboarding tools are not just for some form filling, but it's also a great tool for provisioning. So let's say a lot of time you get into a company, you do not have a seat, you do not have a phone, your system is not ready, and you feel frustrated that, okay, my day is wasted. And being new to that company, you actually do not know who all to approach to get things done. Your onboarding tool can be a great asset in ensuring that all this provisioning is done before the person actually shows up in the company, and the person actually knows what's the status on these things before he or she actually comes to the company. Not just that, onboarding tool can go a step beyond that and make it a lot more personalized in terms of, let's say, for someone who is left-handed. Now imagine someone who is left-handed, but your whole system and everything you have set up for a right-handed person. But if you can make that suitable for that left-handed person, think how that person will feel coming into your organization. That's another example, someone who is disabled. If you can make the provisions to get that person onboarded, ensuring you take care of all the needs of that person, special needs of that person, that feeling, that person will never forget the way he or she was being treated on that first day. And that makes all the difference in terms of onboarding. Okay, the next question is, how do we measure the effectiveness of onboarding using a system like Kenexa? Okay, so couple of the slides, the business outcomes slides that I've shown during my presentation. So one is the performance engagement, right? So your engagement of the employees, as you put together a structured onboarding in place and automate it, will definitely increase. And our studies have consistently shown that. Next is the performance itself. Studies have shown that new hires who are able to achieve their first year goals are significantly higher for people who went through structured onboarding versus just paperwork or very unorganized onboarding process. Similarly, retention. People who went through proper structured planned onboarding actually have almost 3 times higher rate of retention than companies who did not go through structured onboarding. So yes, the effectiveness on onboarding actually can be measured in terms of performance, in terms of engagement, in terms of attrition. And those are key business metrics that you can track. The next question is again from Darshan. And the question is, what are the elements of succession planning in Kenexa? How can a HR or department manager conduct succession planning as part of employee engagement initiative? Okay. I see a lot of questions on succession planning. That's great. Maybe at some point we can have a detailed session on succession planning in Kenexa. So just to answer Darshan's question, at the heart of succession planning is what we call competencies, right? Competencies are something that you define for each job role, job position. And then within competencies, you have proficiencies. So you can define different level of proficiencies for those competencies. And so once you have done that, then you can measure each individual against those competencies and at different levels of proficiencies. And so once you have done that, you can do a comparison as to who stands where in terms of those competencies. And that typically gives you a plan as to who is the right person to succeed someone. Okay. How can manager or HR manager conduct this? Actually, succession planning and employee engagement are a little different. Succession planning is more in terms of your talent management. Employee engagement is again part of talent management, but more in terms of driving business metrics, right? So these are a little too different in the way we deliver it, and employee engagement is more driven from HR perspective, hiring manager's perspective. Succession planning is more of a HR/leadership task that's get done within the organization. Can onboarding programs be executed for new hires? Again from Darshan Penikar. Yes, onboarding programs are for new hires, but not just for new hires. As I said, onboarding definitely will help new hires. In fact, if you see the data that I have presented, new hires engagement level and retention rate goes up much higher with structured onboarding. Can parallel tasks be assigned to new hires as part of onboarding? And that's a question from, again, Darshan. Yes, you can define parallel tasks. So within our onboarding tool, basically, you have a workflow. And you can define your steps within the workflow based on your company's needs. In fact, the workflow can be further defined not just for a company. It can be defined based on your business units. It can be defined based on your location, based on your country. So basically what we call demographics, right? So based on demographic data, you can define your workflow. And when a candidate applies and enters data in the onboarding system, based on the demographic data, it takes up the right path based on the definition of the workflow and completes the process accordingly. So yes, parallel tasks can be assigned. There can be feedback loop. There can be loop back. So there can be review system done, right? A candidate new hire has filled in some form, but all the data is not correct. The reviewer, the onboarding specialist actually can send it back to the candidate again saying this is not done, please redo it. So there is a look back option available also within the workflow. So yes, various ways you can determine. It all depends on how you want to run the onboarding within your company. So those are the questions I had so far. Any other questions?
There's just one more question, Devashish.
Yeah, again from Darshan, I believe. Is Kenexa integrated with learning to execute an effective employee development process? Yes, we have our own learning management system, and not just learning management system, we have learning content management system, what we call LCMS. We are one of the leaders in that field in the world today. And again, within learning, it's a very social tool as well as a mobile tool. So we have both the social piece within our learning solution as well as a mobile delivery platform for our learning. The social piece actually helps us track the unstructured learning, right? Or learning that is not through classroom or through webinars or sessions, scheduled sessions. Learning that people do searching through the web, talking to each other, answering questions in the forum and stuff like that. Whereas the mobile platform, what we call the hot lava, helps us to deliver learning while on the go. And people actually can take the learning courses on their cell phones or smartphones and things like that. We have some standard tool for onboarding in the live market, Gunashekar Subramanian. Yes, there are several tools. Kenexa actually, IBM Kenexa is one of the organizations which provides onboarding tools. There are several other companies which does so. I mean, you can easily Google them and find them in the net.
Thank you so much for answering the questions, Devashish. Those were the questions we had for the webinar. I would also like to thank all our participants for the support in making this webinar a success. I would like you all to know that the recording of this session would be available on techgeek.com by tomorrow. Thank you all once again. Have a great evening.
Thank you, Mohini. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk to